Calgary Flames trade rumors are escalating as Swedish defenseman Rasmus Andersson has been linked to the Montreal Canadiens. No trade is absolutely imminent at this time, but if you're looking at all of the teams in the league, a trade with the Habs could make the most sense for both sides. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Andersson to Montreal. This is not the first time that he has been linked to Le Bleu, Blanc et Rouge, but it's probably the most legitimate case for maybe making a trade at this point. And it's funny because we've seen throughout the summer Andersson be linked to obviously many places, but we've also seen quite a few of our players actually be linked to the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know why there's so many Habs Flames trade rumors when they're combined. They're teams in kind of different positions in terms of where they are at, but the point, I guess, possibilities for next season are similar, but the Habs more of a younger team, the Flames trying to be a younger team, kind of like the Habs overall. It's just a little bit interesting overall, but a Rasmus Andersson trade to Montreal could make a lot of sense, and we have a wonderful article here written by William Bourget. So this one actually comes from, the Habs point of view. It's more of a Habs biased article, whereas obviously we usually take a look at ones written from Flames writers. This one written from a Habs writer. Let's see what they say. So they say, Canadiens' best trade package to acquire Rasmus Andersson from the Flames. So the recent comments from Michael Backlund suggesting that his teammate Rasmus Andersson on an expiring contract might be on the move have stirred interest around the NHL. A right-handed defenseman with offensive ability and stare downs and reliable minutes always attracts attention, and the Montreal Canadiens should at least be interested. But should the Canadiens seriously consider making a push for Andersson? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It depends on several moving parts tied directly to the team's long-term plans and roster construction. And that's totally fair to say that, but you could say that about literally any single NHL team ever making a trade. Obviously, it's not, a simple yes or no, we're going to trade for this guy. It all comes down to, obviously, long-term plans, roster construction, your competitive window, your salary cap, everything else. But either way, let's get in. So, we already took a look at this. What could Montreal offer? That is what we honestly care about the most here as Flames fans. So if Montreal does decide to explore a deal for Andersson, the package they could offer depends on two scenarios from obviously the Montreal side. The first scenario is moving Matheson as part of the deal. So in this way, I guess Matheson has been linked to Calgary. Just before we move on, is that what we want in a return package for Andersson? I wouldn't think so. Sure, there could be an argument from the Flames side, but not a very significant one. I think the Flames want something different. But either way, the first scenario is moving Matheson as part of the deal. If the Canadiens do not believe they will re-sign him, he becomes an attractive trade chip. Calgary could use a veteran defenseman with offensive ability. Isn't that what Andersson is? And Matheson fits that mold. A package built around Matheson and a second-round pick could be reasonable, provided Matheson is willing to sign in Calgary and the Flames prefer an established NHL piece in return. That's a lot of ifs in there. This type of deal would be more of a hockey trade where both sides swap needs rather than one side purely rebuilding. And yeah, Matheson in a second isn't the worst package that I think the Flames could be offered in a Rasmus Andersson trade, but it really doesn't go after what we're looking for. We'd like a young center or kind of a first-round pick. I think that's kind of the bare minimum here. Matheson, sure, he's a good player. Would he want to play in Calgary? I'm not too sure. Is he what we need? No. I think this trade makes a lot of sense from Montreal's side. I don't think it makes loads of sense from Calgary's side. It really doesn't to me. Sure, a second-round pick is nice, but it's just not exactly what we're looking for again. But either way, it's interesting to say the least. Now, the second scenario is if Calgary isn't looking for a veteran and prefers future assets, which is more of the reality here. In that case, Montreal would likely need to part with a first-round pick and a prospect. Now we're talking. That's a steep price, and in this situation, Matheson could then be traded separately at the deadline to recoup some assets, keeping Montreal's overall prospect pool intact. So that makes sense from Montreal's side. They can trade Matheson and get stuff back. That's totally fine because you're going to be giving up a lot for Andersson. Now, this all comes down to Calgary's strategy. Do they want to remain competitive by bringing in NHL-ready players, or do they want to fully pivot toward a rebuild by gathering futures? And it's funny because if Andersson departs, we can already fill that void with some of the youngsters. Are they going to be as good as Andersson right away? No, but it's great to get that experience, and I wouldn't necessarily call it still full rebuilding, but still. Montreal has the flexibility to work with both plans, but it would require careful asset management and a clear decision about its own long-term core, and they have no issues when it comes to that. As an outsider from the Habs organization, they got a lot of good stuff going on, especially with their prospects and their pipeline. So I don't think it's a problem to give up, a first and a prospect. Obviously not an A1 prospect in this case if you're giving up a first, but still extremely interesting. Now, Andersson would undeniably make Montreal's blue line stronger today. He brings experience, stability, and offensive upside on the right side, a rare commodity in the NHL. However, acquiring him isn't just about short-term improvement. The Canadiens need to weigh the implications for their salary cap, their belief in Reinbacher, and the direction of their defensive core. At the end of the day, whether or not the Habs should pursue Andersson comes down to timing. If their internal timeline aligns, Andersson could be a perfect fit. If not, patience may be the wiser play. And that's exactly it. I think the Habs down the road might have some salary cap issues with all their good youngsters. That's just what happens to those kind of teams. And you get into some of those binds that we've seen teams get into. But either way, Andersson, as we know, makes them better right now. Do they want to compete now? That's exactly what the question is. It totally does come down to timing. And I like the second scenario a lot more than the first as a Flames fan. But some interesting comments here. So this is actually a comment from the article we just read. So the Habs don't need to add another offensive-focused D-man, and I doubt Andersson wants to play behind Dobson and Hudson, as it will hurt his numbers and limit his contract demands. He's going to want top pairing minutes and power play time to maximize his output. The Habs really can't be spending more on defense. Their decor is going to be very expensive when they re-sign Hudson, and I think that is a very reasonable way to look at it. It totally depends, again, what Montreal's kind of plans are for the future, but it seems like obviously Dobson and Hudson will be part of that and will be expensive. Dobson obviously already has signed his next contract, so interesting there, very interesting. I think this is from a Habs fan as well, and it just kind of shows it's never that simple when it really boils down to it. And Andersson from his side wants to play as much as he can to get the most money possible. So would Montreal be the best place for that? Maybe not, but you need to accept a trade somewhere, don't you? Some other ones. So these are a couple tweets that I thought were funny. So the first one from a Flames standpoint says, Rasmus Andersson doesn't want to get traded to LA, Montreal, or Carolina because those teams already have an Andersson on their roster. It would be too awkward. And that's kind of funny. Look, some of those teams that he has been linked to many times, especially LA and Montreal, they already got their Andersons. They don't need another one. You don't want to be like Vancouver and have a bunch of Petterssons. Another one from a long time ago from Puck Talk. They said Montreal seems ready to make a move and Calgary seems ready to move Rasmus Andersson, meaning they could use Matheson if a deal gets done for Rasmus. Could Kadri go to Montreal? That's a heck of a tweet. There's so many levels to that. Andersson to Montreal, Matheson to Calgary, Kadri to Montreal. If that was all one trade, then oh my goodness, I'd love to see the rest of it. But yeah, the Montreal and Calgary trade rumors this offseason have been nuts, like I said earlier. One last thing is the fourth period. They actually, interestingly, so this is from a little while ago now, earlier in the summer, but they kind of released their top trade chips for the offseason. Rasmus Andersson clocked in at number 3. And you don't need to read that middle part. We know who Andersson is, what he offers. But the teams reportedly linked, funnily enough, Montreal not one of them. So they had Ottawa, Carolina, Dallas, Columbus, Boston, Detroit, LA, and Vegas, which is that's like a quarter of the league right there already. But no Montreal in there, which is interesting. But either way, Rasmus Andersson, we know the trade rumor saga seems endless. It looks like he's destined to get traded, but it also looks destined that he is going to start the season with the Calgary Flames, which is, obviously very interesting overall. But what do you think? Will Andersson get traded, and does a trade with Montreal make sense? I would much rather go after those futures. Now let's get into the comment of the day to wrap up this video, as we love to do here on the channel. Of course, comes from yesterday's video, and this comment comes from Shaker's Word. Just a positive comment here. They said, just amazing what Conroy and company have accomplished since he was named general manager. Some meh trades, but most have been good, and a couple home runs. Drafting is where he has truly shined, and Calgary has a top 10 prospect pool because of it, with a big thumbs up. And look, some people are hopping off the Conroy boat and they don't love him as much anymore, but no matter what it boils down to is in Craig we trust, or in Conroy we trust, or in CC we trust, of course. Absolutely love it. We love our prospects. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to what you saw here today and have a wonderful rest of your day.